What is going on, everybody? Shwazy here, and in today's video we're going to be telling you everything you need to know about the newly facelifted 2023 Nissan Altima. Okay, so the Nissan Altima, this is a vehicle that really does not need an introduction. I mean, it's been around for forever, and I think everybody knows what this vehicle is. It competes with the Toyota Camry, the Honda Accord, the Hyundai Sonata, and the Kia K5. But this is not your grandma's Nissan Altima, you know, the one that you would avoid getting into when she picked you up from the mall. This is actually a newly restyled version. It's actually facelifted here for 2023, and Nissan has done a really good job in updating the exterior and interior, as well as a few other things that we're going to discuss in today's video. And with this SR VC-Turbo version, it's, dare I say, fun to drive. Yes, you heard that correctly, a Nissan Altima that is actually fun to drive. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about 10 things that you should know before you consider buying a Nissan Altima as your next vehicle. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, starting off with the first thing you should know, let's talk about the powertrain. Real quick, I do want to mention the vehicle in front of you today is the SR VC-Turbo edition. So it is the top of the line. This is the most powerful engine you can get on the Nissan Altima, and that is something you should know because it is really a well-engineered engine. Let's talk about it, because the VC stands for variable compression, and what that does is, if you guys are stomping on the gas pedal and you want the most wicked acceleration you can get out of this engine, this vehicle will actually lower the compression ratio to give you the most amount of power. Now, when you're cruising on the highway and you want to get the best overall MPG, what this engine will do is it will actually increase the compression ratio to give you the best MPG. And so Nissan and Infiniti say this gives you kind of V6 type of power, but with 4-cylinder type of fuel economy. And talking about MPG, this vehicle will actually get 25 MPG in the city and 34 on the highway for a combined 29. Now, it actually is better than the competition. The V6 Camry will actually get a combined 26, so 3 MPG lower, and same with the 2-liter turbocharged Honda Accord. So this does have better fuel economy than those vehicles with somewhat similar horsepower. Now, speaking of horsepower, let's talk about it. The 2-liter VC-Turbo comes with 236 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque, but you can actually slightly improve your numbers if you add premium fuel. Now, keep in mind, that's not a requirement. You don't have to have premium fuel, but if you do, you'll get slightly better figures. Now, how does that compare to, say, a Toyota Camry or a Honda Accord? Well, the V6 Camry does have more horsepower. You're looking at just around 301 horsepower, and the Honda Accord with the 2-liter turbo has very similar numbers, about 252 horsepower. So this is more closely to the Honda Accord 2-liter than the Toyota Camry, but you still get better fuel economy than both of those vehicles. Now, if you guys are curious about 0 to 60, it's not bad. It does 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, which is slightly above the 5.1 seconds the Camry does and the 5.5 or so that the Honda Accord can do. Okay, now I did mention that this is the most powerful engine you can get. So what are the other options? Well, if you get any other trim level except for this one, you're going to get a standard 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. And that one produces a lot less horsepower. You're looking around 188 horsepower and about 180 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you do get all-wheel drive, you'll actually get slightly lower figures than those figures I just quoted. And yes, you heard that correctly. You can get the Nissan Altima with all-wheel drive, which is a competitive advantage for this vehicle compared to, say, the Honda Accord and the Hyundai Sonata. You can't get either of those in all-wheel drive. The one downside to that is you cannot get the SR VC-Turbo with this 2-liter turbocharged engine with all-wheel drive. You can only get it with front-wheel drive. Not quite sure why they did that. I think it would be a competitive advantage for them to include all-wheel drive on this engine, but unfortunately, you're stuck with going with the 2.5-liter if you need that all-wheel drive functionality for all-weather conditions like this. Now, regardless of whatever engine or trim level you have, you only have one transmission option, and that is a CVT. It's called an Xtronic CVT, but it is a 1-gear continuously variable transmission, and I think that is one of the downsides, because I do wish they included with this SR VC-Turbo a traditional torque converter automatic, because that would make this thing even quicker, although low, it would probably sacrifice a little bit in MPG. Okay, now the second thing you should know about the Nissan Altima has to do with the exterior styling, which, as I mentioned earlier, they did facelift this vehicle for 2023. And what that includes is an updated front fascia. Now, this is an all-new look to the front end of the Nissan Altima, and I think it looks actually pretty good. First of all, Nissan says this is the updated V-motion grille, and depending on what angle you look at, it almost has this kind of checkered pattern to it, which looks really nice and aggressive. You have piano black plastic around the entire front end. You've got, of course, this SR badge because this is the SR VC-Turbo, and this is one of the first models to feature Nissan's updated badging as well, so it looks a little bit different from the previous generation. Coming over here to the side, what I do like is this blacked out chrome. I kind of wish they included it in more sections of this vehicle, but this is kind of the only place where you can see it, but it gives you kind of that sportier look with this SR trim. Now, let's talk about these headlights because they have a really cool look to them. You've got this LED daytime running light over here, and then all Nissan Altimas now come with LED headlights as well. But I like how it kind of forms into the grille, giving this cool V-motion grille kind of a more aggressive look to it. You do have fake vents over here on the side, but that's kind of to be expected since this is not a true sports sedan or anything like that. I do like the line that runs across the hood and kind of molds into that front bumper and the front fascia. And coming over to the side, you do have quite a few different wheel options. So as of 2023, they updated all of the wheels, and this is specific to the SR VC-Turbo. Each trim level, speaking of which, there's 5 trim levels you can get in the Altima. Each one comes with their own set of wheel options, and these look pretty good. I mean, I think you can always swap out wheels, so I don't really focus too much attention on them, but they are nice looking wheels, and they are 235 wide tires wrapped around 19-inch wheels. Now, moving further up, you do have a body line that stretches all across the vehicle, comes all the way to the back, looks really good, and then it kind of blends into this second body line that runs right below it and kind of blends into the door panel and then fades away. And then there is one more little hockey stick shaped body line here at the bottom. I think the side of the vehicle does look pretty good. One thing to mention up here is you do have this floating roof line, or what looks to be a floating roof line. Nissan has done this on previous cars as well. It's kind of this black plastic that separates the top from the bottom but gives it a kind of a sportier or cooler looking stance with that floating roof line. I do wish they included more of that darkened chrome over here on the side instead of this real chrome look to it, because it just doesn't really match the rest of the vehicle, especially with the sportier appearance. The second thing I'm going to complain about is the fact that there's really no window tint on this vehicle. When you're driving inside, it almost feels like you're in a fishbowl, and I really wish they add a little bit of tinting, especially with this being the sportier model. I think that would be a nice touch. Now, in case you're curious about the color, this is actually a deep blue pearl, and I think it looks really nice. I like blue colored cars, especially dark blue, and it does have a nice touch to it. It's not very metallic by any means, but it looks really nice overall. And as of 2023, they actually added 2 additional color options, so you can play with the configurator online and see which one is best for you. Now, you do have a blacked out mirror cap over here, and then you do have an integrated turn signal. That doesn't come on every single one, but it does come on this SR VC-Turbo. And then you do have a sunroof, which will show off in the inside. Now, coming to the back, this is where I wish they updated it a little bit with this 2023 facelift. I don't think the back end looks bad by any means, but I do wish they added kind of an LED running light for the rear tail lights. I think the rear tail lights with the halogen color just don't look as good as the front end, and that's something that I think is a room for improvement, but it's not a bad looking rear end whatsoever. It does have the 2 exhaust ports down here, giving it kind of a sportier appearance, and you know, a fake splitter as well, but nothing much else to report. You do have an SR badging, and then you do have the VC-Turbo as well. So you can get just a regular SR, but there is another trim level for the VC-Turbo, so keep that in mind because those are 2 different trim levels. One thing to note about the SR trim level, regardless of whether it's the VC-Turbo or not, is you do get a sport tune suspension. So this thing is going to drive and ride a little bit different than all of the other Altimas because it's a little bit more sporty, or a little bit stiffer, and we'll talk about that when we get behind the wheel and talk about driving dynamics. You do have kind of a fake looking spoiler over here in a way. It's a quasi spoiler, but that finishes off the exterior styling of the Nissan Altima. Okay, now for the third thing you should know about the Altima, we have to jump inside and talk about interior styling and materials. Starting off with the door panel, this is actually a big improvement from the previous generations and previous Altimas. This is all soft touch material. It kind of has a cool design to it where it gets wider over here near the A-pillar, and then moving on down, you do have this kind of fake aluminum touch to it. This is hard touch plastic, but then this goes into a soft touch material along with this. This is all leather wrapped surfaces, and what I really like is you have like contrast stitching here. You got red and white stitching, or it's actually orange, but it looks red on the camera. But this is kind of a tenet of the SR trim, regardless of the VC-Turbo or not. You do have some piano black plastic with your window controls, and you do have automatic touch for the driver's side, but everybody else is you got to hold down to open it and close it. Coming further down, you do have a little cup holder and then a small compartment. And then coming inside of the vehicle, that's where the Altima really impresses. You've got this zero gravity seats is what Nissan and Infiniti calls these, and they are extremely comfortable. Super cushiony when you're sitting here. Like, you can even see just how much it's like memory foam almost, and it looks really cool. And then at certain angles, you can see this does have kind of a contrast interior as well. So around these little holes, you do have some orange or red color to it, and it looks really nice. Again, a tenet of the SR trim, and you can even see it's on the floor mats as well. And the floor mats actually have a cool texture to them as well. So some unique use of materials here, and then further up here, you do have a little bit more of that contrast stitching, a little bit more of that orange and that black, and then the headrest as well. So really nice touch here from Nissan to make it a really cool looking interior. Now, I will note, it does seem when you're sitting in this seat that the cushion over here is a little bit short. So my thigh will actually extend about another 3 or 4, maybe even 5 inches past this seat cushion. And there's no way to adjust the thigh length or anything like that. But it's not anything bad. It's just something to get used to. But Nissan does say these zero gravity seats make it easier to go on longer road trips with less fatigue. You do have power seats over here, and you do have lumbar support as well. But now let's jump inside the vehicle and show you what that looks like. Okay, now starting off with the steering wheel, this is kind of more of their updated steering wheel that I haven't seen in some of their other products. On the right hand side, you have most of your cruise control settings, your voice command, and your phone settings. And then over here on the left hand side are your audio controls, as well as the functionality for your instrument gauge cluster. Again, you have the new Nissan logo, which actually looks really good. And then you have some nice aluminum over here. I think this is fake, but still a nice touch. And again, a little bit more of that orange contrast stitching over here on this leather wrap steering wheel. Looks really nice. One thing to mention is this does have a heated steering wheel, and it does have heated seats for both the passenger and the driver's side. Unfortunately, you cannot get ventilated seats on the Nissan Altima, even though you do have perforation in the seats. So I'm not quite sure why they don't include ventilation, but they do not have that on the Altima, where some of the other competitors do. Starting over here on the left-hand side, this is actually the functionality to turn on steering assist when you're driving on the highway. It will actually keep this vehicle centered in the lane, which is really nice. I'll show that off later. Your trunk release, your brightness for your instrument gauge cluster, and then the trip reset. That's just your fan over here. And then this is a material that I want to talk about. It actually is supposed to mimic a carbon fiber material. As you can see, that's what it looks like. But personally, I think it's a little tacky. I don't really like the look of it. It almost feels like it's like a vinyl wrap on top of a piece of plastic, and I would have preferred them use more aluminum or maybe even piano black plastic than this. This is just my personal opinion, but I don't really like the look of that fake carbon fiber, which is kind of what they were going for. Coming up here to the top, this is all soft touch material as well, and as you can see, you got a little bit more of that contrast stitching, and so this is all a soft touch surface. The only part that's hard touch is just all the way back here behind the speakers, which you're never actually going to touch. Coming over here, this is the instrument gauge cluster. It's not bad. I do wish they offered an all digital display that would kind of beat the competitors, whereas this is kind of more matching what they offer. But nonetheless, it is nice that it is a pretty large screen overall, and we'll talk about technology here in just a minute. Coming over here, we'll talk about this 12.3-inch screen in a moment as well, but lots of functionality. You do have some quick access buttons like your seek and track, your volume, and then you do have a direct button for your camera, which we'll show off in just a minute as well. You do have 2 air vents, your hazard button, and then down here, this is your climate control settings. And I will say these are really nice knobs. I mean, they feel really good in the hand. They don't feel cheap. They kind of have this cool texture to them. This is actually better than some of the materials in the Infiniti QX80 I recently reviewed, which had kind of cheaper looking buttons and toggles than this thing does. And this is a quarter of the price. These are heated seats, heated steering wheel. These are just your typical ventilation functions. Coming down here, you do have a wireless charger, which actually fits some of the largest phones. So mine's a S22 Ultra Samsung, and it fits just fine. And then over here, you do have some USB ports, and then a cigarette style outlet as well. Coming further back, this is your shifter. It's nice leather wrap. This is your engine start stop button. And then moving further down here, this is some piano black plastic, and then followed by 2 cup holders. Further back here, you do have your electronic parking brake and your auto hold function. Again, some nice aluminum that outlines the piano black plastic. It doesn't really look that cheap here, which I really like. And then as you can see, there is some contrast stitching over here on the side of the center arm console. And there's even some over here where you're going to rest your knee, and this is pretty padded, so you're not going to get tired driving this car on the highway. I really like that they included that and didn't just put hard touch plastics here, even though nobody's really going to see this section. You do have a nice center arm console, again, some more of that stitching, and it's not too big, but decent enough for a vehicle of this size. Now, this is a look at the passenger side. You do have a glove compartment over here. It's just full of plastic, nothing really fancy there. And that's a look at the passenger door panel. Coming over to the top, nothing too much to report. You do have a sunglass holder, just your lighting, and then you do have a sunroof as well. You do not have any type of panoramic moonroof on this vehicle, which is again something some of the other competitors do offer. Overall, a really nice interior here on the Nissan Altima, and they've made a big improvement over the previous generations, especially with this new facelift where you get this 12.3-inch touchscreen. Okay, now the fourth thing you should know about the Nissan Altima is it comes packed with lots of new technology, especially in this 2023 facelift. Starting off, as I mentioned earlier, you do have this digital instrument gauge cluster over here. It's not fully digital, but it is about a 7-inch screen or so, and it provides some decent functionality. You do have a digital speedometer with a compass. You have your average fuel economy, how many miles until you have to fill up, and then your safety features once you activate them. Again, nothing super fancy here, and I wish they would have included an all-digital display, but this really makes up for all of that, and this is what they updated here in 2023. If you do get the upgraded 12.3-inch screen, which depending on what trim level you get, like this SR VC-Turbo, it does come standard or included as an upgrade. This is the latest version of Nissan software, and I really like it. It's a big improvement over the previous gen, which wasn't that bad at all, but this is even better. I mean, you've got customizable widgets here where you can add, tons of different things. And then you have your quick access buttons over here on the left-hand side, which is nice because sometimes they stretch them out over here at the bottom and you kind of have to reach to be able to access them. Whereas here on the left-hand side, you can quickly access them from the driver's seat. And the color display is really nice. As you can see, the graphics aren't too bad. Now, the map is a little bit outdated, but the nice thing here that not all other competitors offer is you do get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Some of them do still have wired Android Auto, and so it's nice that this one offers both of those, so you don't really need to use this map function. One other benefit of the wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is it takes up the full screen. A lot of times I've seen other competitors where they take up maybe 2/3 of the screen and it just kind of looks weird, whereas this actually takes up a full 12.3 inches and it looks really nice, especially when you turn on your maps. Then you have your music controls over here, super easy to navigate. This is kind of familiar to previous generation Nissan products, but I like that it is a little bit updated. As a matter of fact, this is more updated than the QX80 I reviewed recently, which still had the outdated software. But a really nice screen overall, and actually a class leader. Aside from the upcoming 2023 Honda Accord, this is the largest screen you can get in a mid-size sedan. Now, another thing I want to mention is this is one of the few vehicles that actually has a 360-degree camera. Now, the quality isn't fantastic, as you can see on the screen. Let me put it in reverse and you can see what that looks like. It could be a little bit better, and I don't like the fact they have these lines over here, but this is a mid-size entry-level sedan, so I can't expect too much from this. And again, the Honda Accord doesn't even have that as an option. I believe the next generation will, but the current one doesn't include that. And Toyota does have a 360-degree camera, but theirs is kind of weird where it just floats around and you kind of have to go into reverse to actually activate the true 360-degree camera. So I like that with the click of a button, I can quickly pull it up and not have to go through some type of setting, especially when I'm pulling into and out of a parking spot. The next piece of technology to mention is something I kind of teased earlier, is the Bose audio system. Now, this vehicle comes with a 9-speaker audio system, and that is an upgraded feature. The standard Altima comes with, I believe, a 6-speaker audio system, and it does sound really good. If you guys have ever used a Bose audio system before, it's just as good as every other Bose. Now, for the fifth thing you should know about the Altima, we got to talk about the second row legroom and amenities. Starting off with the door panel, this is a hard touch plastic material, so unfortunately they didn't carry over the soft touch materials to the second row, but that is common amongst this class. You do have soft touch leather over here, again a leather armrest, some more of that piano black plastic, and then you have a cup holder and a little bit of storage. This is where it gets really cool as well, because again you have those cool floor mats with the contrast stitching. Same with the leather seats as well. I mean, this is something you see in luxury vehicles, not a vehicle that costs under $40,000. Now you do have a center armrest over here as well with 2 cup holders, which is nice. And then jumping inside, let's talk about the legroom. This is actually a really comfortable second row. As a matter of fact, it almost feels like the seat is a little bit longer than the first row. You get a little bit more thigh support in the second row. Now, Nissan says there's about 35.2 inches of legroom back here, and it's plenty. Now, it's not the largest in the segment. I believe the Accord and the Camry have a little bit more second row legroom, but there's not really a need for more. This is plenty of space for any full-size adult to sit in comfortably for longer road trips. Nice thing here is you do have ventilation over here in the back. Not all of the competitors offer second row ventilation, and you do have 2 USB ports located down here as well. Now, in terms of headroom, I'm about 5'9", 6'9". I've got about maybe an inch or two above me. So if you're 6 foot or higher, you may start hitting the top, but that's kind of what you expect from a sedan versus a crossover SUV. Okay, now for the sixth thing you should know about the Altima, we got to talk about cargo volume. Now, it doesn't have any automatic opening or anything like that, but it does kind of assist you with like a spring-loaded action. Now, coming back here, you do have quite a big amount of space over here. It's actually 15.9 cubic feet. Now, that is slightly more than the Toyota Camry, a little bit less than the Honda Accord, and pretty much about the same as the Hyundai Sonata and the Kia K5. Now, not much else to report back here. You do have some hooks over here for groceries on the driver and passenger side, and you do have releases over here to be able to lower the second row seats, which is nice that you can have that access from the trunk. Underneath the floor, not much else to report. You do have a compact spare tire, which is nice that it's not just a fix-a-flat kit, but ultimately you have plenty of space to be able to fit tons of cargo and even more functionality if you fold down the second row. Now for the seventh thing, let's talk about warranty. This comes with a standard 3-year, 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty and a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. Pretty standard amongst the industry, although it is a little bit less than the likes of the Kia and the Hyundai, which offer a 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Now, for number 8, let's talk about safety, and that is where this vehicle really excels. You pretty much have every single modern safety feature you can get in the Altima. You've got emergency braking, you've got pedestrian detection, you've got blind spot monitoring, high beam assist, where your automatic high beams will turn on and off depending on oncoming traffic. You got rear cross traffic alert, you got traffic sign recognition, and a whole host of other safety features that actively work as you're driving down the road. In fact, they added additional safety features for the 2023 model year. Now, this vehicle does get a 5-star crash test rating, and it was a 2022 IIHS top safety pick. This vehicle also comes with 10 airbags inside of the compartment, including airbags for your knees and side impact. Now, another cool safety feature is if you option for Nissan's Pro Pilot Assist, which this particular vehicle does come with. Now, even though you still have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, it will actually monitor the lanes in front of you and keep you centered in between the lanes as you're driving on the highway. I've tested this in other Infiniti products, and it does a really good job at actually keeping you centered on the highway. So a really comprehensive suite of safety features. The only thing this doesn't really have is like a full autonomous driving, similar to, Tesla's Autopilot or GMC's Super Cruise, where you can actually take your hands off the steering wheel. But it is still nice to have for longer road trips where you can kind of relax and not be as focused on the road. Now, for the ninth thing, we're actually going to get behind the wheel and drive this thing, because I've been talking about how this is the most powerful engine that Nissan has to offer on the Altima. So let's put the money where my mouth is and let's see how this thing drives on the road. Okay, let's get inside of the Altima and see how it drives. First of all, this is the traditional Nissan key. You guys have seen this before. They do have the updated Nissan logo, but you do have remote start, which is nice. Now, getting inside, let's see how this vehicle drives on the road. Okay, now turning this vehicle on, you have your push to start over here at the bottom near the gear selector. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is this thing doesn't really have any type of drive modes, but you do have a sport mode. You see this horizontal button underneath the gear selector? Well, if you push that, it will turn on your sport mode, and it'll actually tell you on the screen there's like a little drive with an S on it, and that is your sport mode indicator, which is nice because this is technically the sport version of the Nissan Altima. Okay, we're gonna do just a little bit of an acceleration here. It's actually pretty quick. That's what I was kind of alluding to earlier in the video. This thing is kind of fun to drive. I mean, it isn't the most mind-blowing acceleration, but it's better than what you would expect from just a mid-size sedan. I haven't driven the V6 Camry, and that one does have a little bit more horsepower, but this thing is actually kind of fun. The other thing to note here is you do actually have paddle shifters, and they are quite quick. As I'm sure you might be able to see on the screen, they actually downshift pretty quick, and it upshifts pretty quick. Now, it's not a true shift in gears because this is a CVT and there's really just one gear, but it does have this simulated feel as if you are downshifting, and it does provide a little bit more torque when you do downshift. It kind of gives you a little bit more power to be able to accelerate. Now, I'm gonna put it into sport mode here by pushing that button underneath the gear selector, and there was a little S on the screen, and it does feel a little bit quicker. The throttle response is a little bit better. The transmission feels like it shifts just a little bit quicker, especially in the automatic mode. And ultimately, I'm just really surprised at how fun this vehicle is to drive. from just a small 2-liter turbocharged engine. Another thing that really surprised me is just how quiet the cabin is. I think Nissan and Infiniti do a really good job with the sound deadening, where you can't really hear the tire noise or any of the vehicles driving by you. The only time it's kind of noticeable is when you're driving at highway speeds. But here in city traffic, it's a really calm and collected place. Now, in terms of ride quality, it's not bad. Again, keep in mind, this is the SR, which has the sport suspension, and it's not the softest vehicle I've driven, but it's by no means rough or harsh or anything like that. Driving over some speed bumps or rough patches on the road, this vehicle soaks it up really well. And the fact that it's pretty insulated in terms of sound quality, it doesn't feel like it really jars you on the interior. And I am curious to feel what the non-sport version would drive like, because this isn't rough by any means. Now, in terms of handling, I don't really notice a big difference with the sport suspension. I mean, this handles just like any other mid-size sedan I've ever driven. All right, we'll do a little acceleration here and see how it drives. Yeah, it gets up to speed just fine. That was to 40 miles an hour, and it probably did it in just around 5 seconds, and I wasn't really mashing on the pedal. I mean, 0 to 60, 5.8 seconds. It's really quick for a mid-size sedan. Okay, now we're gonna get on this on-ramp here, and I'll show you some of the safety features. One thing I will mention is the turn signal is really, really loud in this car. I don't know why, but it's very, very noticeable. Let's do a little acceleration here. Yeah, it's plenty quick. Really no complaints there. This is plenty of power for a vehicle of this size. It's never gonna be, super fast, but it's not ever gonna leave you in a situation where you can't pass someone on the highway. Now, let's talk about the safety features. You do have blind spot monitoring, and what's interesting is you have the monitor actually over here in the A-pillar and not in the actual side view mirror, which is a little bit different. But pushing this button on the steering wheel, you activate your Pro Pilot Assist, your suite of safety features. And then once you set the speed limit and this little green icon shows up on the screen, it's telling you that it's monitoring the lanes and gonna keep you inside of it. And once I let go of the steering wheel for too long, it's gonna give me an alert on the screen over here. But as you can see, I mean, I'm not really shifting. There we go, see it came up with the alert. But I'm not really shifting left and right. It's keeping me pretty centered in the lane, and Pro Pilot Assist does a really good job at that. It's one of the better ones out there. It doesn't just kind of wobble you left and right, and it does let you let go of the steering wheel for a pretty long time before it makes you grab a hold of the steering wheel again. Unfortunately, you can't turn on the left blinker or right blinker and it will transition into the lanes for you. That's kind of the next level of safety features that Nissan doesn't have. But for every other situation, it's perfectly fine. A really cool technology overall, especially at a vehicle that's under $40,000. To have this type of technology is fantastic. In fact, the QX80 I recently reviewed didn't even have this technology. So the fact that that vehicle was $90,000 and it couldn't keep you centered in the lane, and this one does, is first of all kind of odd, but also second of all just really accolades to the Nissan Altima for having this latest technology. Now, in regards to the powertrain, one thing I will mention is I do wish they offered a conventional torque converter automatic in this. Even though the CVT is not bad, I still wish it had a regular like 9-speed automatic, because I think it'd be quicker to downshift and to accelerate and not give you kind of that droney noise that you sometimes get when you're accelerating. It just kind of has this like whiny sound to it. I get that they do that because of fuel economy, but with this sport version, I wish they had kind of a more traditional automatic transmission. Okay, to finish things off with the last thing you should know about the Altima, of course, we got to talk about pricing. Now, the base Nissan Altima, which is the Altima S, that one starts at around $25,290. But if you upgrade all the way up to this SR VC-Turbo edition, you're going to get yourself a $34,990 price tag. This one, after destination and an additional option or two, is at $36,440, which is really not that bad considering the average new vehicle is over $40,000. And you have a pretty good accelerating, almost 250 horsepower engine that has really decent fuel economy. So not a bad bargain over here. Now let's compare that to the Camry and the Honda Accord. The V6 Camry starts around $35,800, so it's a little bit more expensive than this one. The 2-liter Honda Accord with the turbocharged turbocharged engine. That one you can get option on the Accord Sport, which starts around $33,700. So a little bit cheaper than this one, but the Honda Accord Sport comes with fewer features. It doesn't have the same type of interior upholstery. It doesn't have the same 12.3-inch touchscreen, so you're getting a little bit less features, even if you're getting the same amount of horsepower. If you upgrade and get all of those features, you can get the Honda Accord Touring with the 2-liter turbo, but that one's gonna set you back about $38,000. So the Nissan Altima is really the bargain when it comes to horsepower and interior amenities. Okay, so what is the verdict? What are my overall thoughts on the Nissan Altima SR VC-Turbo? Well, to be honest, I was actually pleasantly surprised with this vehicle. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. It's actually pretty fun to drive for a mid-size entry-level sedan. It's got lots of cool tech on the inside. You've got a beautiful 12.3-inch touchscreen with all of the functionality you could ask for. Wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You've got wireless charging. It has everything you would ever want and need in any new vehicle. Now, there are a couple things that I do wish Nissan offered in the Altima. First of all, I do wish they had a hybrid as an option for this model. I just think that would make it more competitive with the Camry and the Accord, which are some of the best selling in this segment. And I think a hybrid is what a lot of people want from a mid-size sedan, because then they can get the best fuel economy. That being said, you do get pretty decent economy out of this 2-liter turbocharged. The next thing I wish this vehicle came with was a conventional torque converter automatic, especially on this SR VC-Turbo. Both the Accord and the Camry offer either an 8 or a 10-speed automatic transmission with their V6 or their 2-liter turbocharged, and it makes it a little bit quicker 0 to 60. That's why I think this one lags a little bit in terms of acceleration compared to those other two, is because this has a CVT transmission, and they're great in terms of fuel economy, but not so great in terms of acceleration. And Nissan does have a pretty decent 9-speed automatic that they could probably throw into this vehicle and make it quicker 0 to 60. I also wish they did offer a panoramic sunroof and maybe a head-up display, because some of the other competitors offer that as well. But overall, you really can't go wrong with the Altima. They've done a lot of good things here with the 2023 facelift and a lot of cool technology that bring it ahead of its competition. If you guys do end up buying one of these in your driveway, you're not going to be disappointed, especially in this SR VC-Turbo, which is the one I would pick because it's actually kind of fun to drive. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also find me on all of the social media down in the description below at Schwazy_. And as always, everybody, I hope you stay Schwazy, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.